In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Montreal Canadiens and some potential trades and free agent signings they might be looking to make this summer to get better for next year. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. I came across an interesting article from Eric Engels of Sportsnet outlining some potential moves that the Habs might be making here during the offseason, so I wanted to discuss the article here with you today, let you know what moves that he speculates they're looking at, and get your thoughts, so make sure you leave some comments down below and let me know what you think of these potential moves. Now, as I had discussed in the Montreal Canadiens offseason report video, which we did last week, if you missed that video, I'll link to it up here in the YouTube cards. In that video, I discussed my opinions, which kind of are similar to what his are here in this article, outlining the type of players, at least, that they might be looking to add during this offseason here. Most specifically, left side defense. They need somebody to play in that top four, ideally in that top two, to be a solid partner here for Shea Weber. Now, he speculates they could go about this in a couple of different ways. They could look to the free agent market or to the trade market. Now, through free agency, a couple of the most prominent options would be Maple Leafs defenseman Jake Gardiner or Canuck defenseman Alex Edler. Both are slated to become UFAs on July 1st and will likely fit there. Obviously, out of the two, I think Jake Gardiner is your better option. Certainly would cost probably a little bit more money, but he's younger, he's more mobile, and I think long-term at least it would be a much better fit. Edler would be a decent option for a short-term basis, but I certainly wouldn't be looking to sign him for too long, given his past here. He's a little older, had more injuries, etc. So Gardiner, I think, would be the better option. Now, I know many of you out there are probably thinking, oh, but Jake Gardiner's awful defensively. And you know what? He's actually, in my opinion at least, not as bad as he gets credit for. I mean, I know he's had some pretty big defensive woes in some important games for the Leafs, but overall, he's a very mobile, puck-moving defenseman and has generated a lot of offense for Toronto. So if you look at it from the positive side here, not every defenseman is going to be real strong on both ends of the ice. And you know what? Defensively, he might not be as good as some of the others, but he can provide a lot of offense, which will certainly help make up for those defensive woes. So I do think he would be a good player for the Habs to look into here. And of course, they could address this in other ways too, like I said, through the trade market, which would certainly obviously have some assets going out to make this accomplished. One team that Marc Bergevin and the Habs could look to would be the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, Chuck Fletcher and the Flyers are expected to be a very active team this offseason. They're expected to be making a lot of different moves. Obviously, this is his first offseason as GM, and certainly he hasn't really left his mark on the team. They're expected to do a bit of a shake-up there to get this team back in playoff contention and really set it forward here, for the future. It seems as though the upper management were kind of frustrated with the lack of consistent playoff performances and lack of consistent improvements to get them moving forward to being a cup contender. Even though they have drafted and developed relatively well, they're still not quite there yet. So we'll see what kind of moves they make. But one player on the Flyers that would be very much of interest to the Habs would be Shane Gostisbehere. Now, as we know, Gostisbehere and Provorov, both the Flyers defensemen, they're both young and have a ton of potential, but they both had some steps back this year, so certainly, not endearing themselves to Flyers fans and Flyers management, and they very well might look to move one of them, and I think Gostisbehere is the more likely of the two. The Flyers defense, for the most part, does have a lot of younger, strong defensemen, which can afford them to trade Gostisbehere, and they might look to bring in a veteran or so to kind of shore things up that way to get some more experience on their blue line. So Gostisbehere, like I speculated for the last few months here, might be a player the Flyers are willing to move. Now, what's it going to take to get that done? Well, for example, if we had a type of deal like this happen at the draft, I could see the Flyers maybe wanting a defenseman in return, so that's a possibility as well. But they might necessarily go a different route as well. They might have to give up like a Mete or Juleson. It's hard to say. However, as we know, the Habs are full of draft picks, so they can certainly package together some draft picks and players. So they have some decent prospects as well. It's hard to say exactly what the requirements would be from the Flyers. They very well might want something different in return, but either way, they have some good options and some tradable assets the Flyers might be interested in. And I think if they could land Shane Gostisbehere, I think longer term, that would be a great add for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, to a lesser extent, there might be some other D as well that kind of fit the mold here. For example, TJ Brodie from the Calgary Flames might be a team that they talk to as well. I think it's probably fair to say the Flames might try to shake up their defense core a little bit here during the offseason. I think Brodie might be a guy who gets dangled out there. The article from Eric Engels suggests that maybe dangling a forward like Andrew Shaw might be able to get that deal done. Shaw obviously provides some grit, in that third line type of player. Might fit well with the Flames, might be a deal they would consider doing. And of course, they could also look to the Colorado Avalanche. He felt maybe Ian Cole might be a good fit as well. But I think a lot of that also kind of depends if they retain Jordy Ben or not. Obviously, he's a UFA as well for Montreal, so depending on if he returns and what their whole decor looks like, they're going to need a certain type of defenseman. I think they need somebody who can move the puck and generate some offense. So I like the idea of like a Gostisbehere or a Gardiner better myself. I think they would be the best fits here for Montreal to really address that left side defense. So out of all these options for Montreal to address their left side defenseman who can play in those top two pairings, ideally with Shea Weber on the top pair, what do you think is the best option here? Should they try to address this through free agency and go after one of the guys we discussed there? Or should they look to maybe make a trade and see if they can land a guy like Gostisbehere from the Flyers? Now, Eric Engels also goes on to talk about and speculate the fact that the Montreal Canadiens likely will try to add at least one forward through free agency, likely somebody who can play that middle six or top nine type of role. There's certainly some key players out there who might find themselves looking to go to a new team this summer that might fit the mold, including Brett Connolly of the Washington Capitals. I mean, Connolly certainly had a really solid year for the Caps. He's been steadily improving the last few years. And because of his performance in their tight cap situation, he very well might price himself right out of Washington and end up finding himself a new home. It's hard to say. As we talked about before with the Capitals, they do have a bit of a cap situation there. Depends on if they are willing to trade a bigger contract. We talked about the fact that maybe a Holtby or a Backstrom or somebody like that gets moved out to be able to retain more players and overall help the team. Hard to say how they go about doing things here, but if Brett Connolly prices himself out of Washington and cannot be retained over there, because I think they would like to keep him, I think Montreal would be a good landing spot for him. He's a versatile winger, and he can contribute a solid 20 goals. At least he should be able to hopefully keep that up, and with his strong play here, he can also play on special teams at times too. So I think Connolly would be a good player for them to look to, somebody who wouldn't cost too much. But another player that apparently has interested the Montreal Canadiens, I've seen this on various NHL insiders citing this here in the past, that they've had a lot of interest on Jordan Eberle really ever since he was in junior. And of course, he's going to be a free agent this summer. His contract with the Islanders is set to expire here on July the 1st. And Jordan Eberle's had, some decent years with the Islanders. Eberle's another player as well who hasn't quite fully reached his full potential on some occasions as well. He's had his moments where he's looked great, but certainly ever since he's been into the NHL, I certainly expected him to be capable of a little bit more, and very well might be able to bring him in like they did, like with a Max Domi, for example, and kind of get things rejuvenated here. Although he has played well with the Islanders recently in the last year or two, playing with Barzal. There's certainly a lot of talk with the Islanders, though, that they may not retain him. They have some other big names like Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Robin Leonard, that they may not be able to keep them all, and of all of them, that they very well might be willing to let Eberle go to be able to spend more money on the other guys to retain them. So Eberle might be available. It might be a guy who could play in their top 2 to 3 lines here to kind of shore things up as well. And another guy he mentioned as well was Jason Spezza of the Dallas Stars. Likely won't be back in Dallas. His contract's up. He's going to definitely be taking a smaller contract for sure. His role has diminished. His play has diminished, but he can still contribute to get a decent playoffs. But he's going to be looking for a new home. And he could accept a third or fourth line role with Montreal and certainly solidify to bring some offense from those bottom six type of roles. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure Spezza's really a great fit. I do kind of disagree with Engels in that degree, but I can see Eberle or Connolly, or even he also mentioned Jonas Donskoy of the Sharks as well. He might be expendable depending on what else they do. They have some big questions like Pavelski and Carlson, whatnot. They have some big contracts they might have to look after, so they might not be able to afford to retain Donskoy as well. And obviously he had a big goal for them here in the playoffs too. So certainly some guys having some interesting playoff seasons that might be available. So certainly lots of options for the Habs to consider in free agency to kind of give themselves just a little bit extra scoring punch here. Personally, out of all the options, I think Eberle or Connolly make the most sense for Montreal to look to solidify their forward group. Now, of course, the article doesn't mention anything about goaltending, but as I mentioned in the offseason report video as well, Carey Price had a solid year, but they need a better backup as well. N.T. Niemi didn't quite cut it this year. He's a free agent. Safe to say he won't be back. They do have Charlie Lindgren under contract for the next few years at a very team-friendly contract, especially if he can play 20-25 games and give them a decent performance. That contract could be very much a bargain, but he's been inconsistent as well, and there was speculation I've seen before and on my own part that they very well might look to add a veteran goaltender as a backup to Price. There's going to be plenty out there on the market. There's all kinds of guys out there that they could look to, whether it be a Cam Ward from Chicago. There's Anders Nilsson, who finished the year with the Ottawa Senators. There's also Michael Hutchison, who finished the year with the Maple Leafs, who was basically brought in there as an insurance policy as well. Hard to say how the Leafs address their goaltending situation next year between Sparks, Hutchison, or if they go on a completely different route. Hard to say, but either way, Hutchison is also a free agent, and he can provide that insurance policy for Montreal like he did with Toronto last year, so that's certainly another possibility here as well. Of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section on all these potential moves for the Montreal Canadiens. What do you think they should do this offseason to make their team better for next year? If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.